Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'd like to welcome everyone today for our Sunday Love Feast. And before we begin, we'd like to see if we have any guests coming today for the first time. I know this wonderful couple came today. Is it Namita? Namita and your husband? Ravindra. Namita, Ravindra. There you go. It's their first time here, so please give them a nice welcome. Anyone else coming today for the first time? First time visitors? What's your name?
Summer. Summer.
Summer. Like winter, spring. Welcome. Is this your daughter?
Oh, this is my daughter.
Your daughter. What's your name? With the nice glasses?
Jessie.
Jessie, Hare Krishna.
Christina.
Christina, welcome. Anyone else coming today for the first time? Any other first time visitors? So thank you all very much for being here today. We have somewhat of a different program today. And I'll just begin by saying that we recently lost a member of our community who was visiting India. And as we progress in the next 45 minutes or so, you'll hear about this wonderful devotee who is a member of our community and disciple of Srila Prabhupada. I just wanted to share first one verse from Bhagavad Gita first. Now, this is his picture here. His name is Hasyagrami Dasa, and he's a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And as I said, you'll hear more about him as we go forward this evening. But I just want to share this one thought from Bhagavad Gita, verse number 40, chapter 2, text 40. Neha vikrama nashosti vadyavayo navidyate swalpam apyasya dharmasya trayate mahato vaya. The Lord says, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. I think the essence of the life of Hasyagrami Prabhu, because he joined Krishna consciousness in 1971 and continually served Srila Prabhupada throughout his life until just a few days ago. And a very unique aspect of his life, when he started the Krishna consciousness back in the early 70s, he traveled with a very, very special disciple of Srila Prabhupada, His Holiness Vishnu Jana Swami. And Hasyagrami, I mean, most of you don't know the whole history of the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan preaching party. For some reason closing? Hey, go. Where are you? That party, actually, if you ever see on the internet, you'll see some big, big school buses, very old school buses. But that school bus was actually a traveling temple. And the beautiful deities of Radha Damodar were inside that school bus. So Hasyagrami's responsibility is to make sure that school bus, if it breaks down, that it keeps going. He was in charge of taking care of the bus and making sure it was good because it had to support the deities Radha Damodar. Those deities are still being worshipped in Gita Nagari. In fact, for me, they were the first Radha Krishna deities that I ever saw, Radha Damodar in Atlanta. So he was very fortunate to travel with one of Prabhupada's most dear disciples, Vishnu Jana Swami. And I know, and I'm sure I'm going to request Dasa Prabhupada to speak very soon, but Hasyagrami's relationship in Krishna consciousness, he gave most credit, besides his Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, he would give to Vishnu Jana Swami for having that association. And he was famous for, of course, many of you know him as the guitar player for the Morari Band and New Money Band and all of that, but he was actually even more famous as the Esraj player with Vishnu Jana Swami. He had this very beautiful Indian instrument that he learned how to play. And if you listen to the kirtan tapes of Vishnu Jan Swami, you hear that beautiful stringed instrument in the back. That's Hasyagrami playing. And also they had a program called the Road Show, and they traveled around America, including Atlanta, and they would do this big production. It was a musical, Hare Krishna musical drama. And Hasyagrami was the lead guitar player for that group, and it was very, very special. And they played many places. So here in Atlanta, my great fortune is that I knew Hasyagrami when he was here in the 70s, early 70s, traveling with Vishnu Jan Swami, and I always took notice of him. He had a special kind of look, just like you see him in this picture. If you can imagine him without the hair and shaved up, he just had this wonderful look. And I used to notice him. I didn't know him that well in the 70s, but I always noticed him, his energy. And then when he came back to Atlanta, I believe in 1981, he moved into the temple here to become part of the Murari band at that time. He became our guitar player. I was so excited, because I knew about Hasyagrami. And I was so excited. Hasyagrami's here in Atlanta now. So from 1981 until just a few days ago, we had been working together musically and spiritually. And for this temple, Hasyagrami did many, many services for this temple. If you look and you're hearing the sound coming out of those two speakers, those were put there by Hasyagrami. He wanted to put some better quality speakers for the temple. He always did these little things in the background. That's why I read that verse. No matter how so-called insignificant your service is, Krishna takes notice. I mean, a lot of you don't know Hasyagrami, because he's always in the background. Every year for Rath Yatra, Hasyagrami was there. Whenever the Murari band was requested to do anything, Hasyagrami was there. Any amount of donation that he could give, Hasyagrami would always do that. Any service that he could do, he would always do. Because as a disciple of Srila Prabhupada, no matter how difficult his personal life became, he always found a way to serve his spiritual master. And whenever you heard him speak, like on Vyasa Putra with Srila Prabhupada, he always gave reference to his relationship with Srila Prabhupada. So I'm humbly requesting tonight, those of you who knew him, I'm going to request Veda Sarpur, our temple president, first to speak a little bit on behalf of the temple community, his appreciation for Hasyagrami. And then I will immediately ask Dasarath Prabhu, who's one of his longest standing friends and knows a lot about Hasyagrami's background and so many things. And then other devotees who would like to share their feelings about Hasyagrami and how he impacted your life. I put a post on the internet just the other day, and post after post after post after post, devotees who knew him, who were affected by him, who were inspired by him, all over the movement, practically all over the world. So tonight we're going to dedicate this program to remembering the service and service attitude of Hasyagrami Prabhu. And again, one special quality, Hasyagrami, in my opinion, had no enemies. It's very unique in anyone's life that you don't have any real enemies. And I don't know of anyone that didn't like Hasyagrami Prabhu, because he was always very kind, always very generous, very enthusiastic. So that was his nature. So I'm going to request Veda Sarpur, if you can please come and say a few words about Hasyagrami Prabhu. And again, immediately Dasarath Prabhu, if you can please come.
Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasati Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I won't take too much time because there's a lot of speakers who have had longer association. I got a call at 8:15ish in the morning from Sikhi Panihati Prabhu. And I was sick in bed, so I couldn't speak, and so I didn't take his phone call. And then I got a text, and he said, he just spoke to his daughter in Mayapur, and that Hasyagrami Prabhu left his body. It took me a little while to realize that what had happened. So we let him get through first. Then I got on Skype and I called Govardhan Leela Mataji, who is currently in Mayapur. And she said that she was heading to see Hasyagrami Prabhu and Narayanara. And I wanted to know a little bit more details, so that when people ask me, I would be able to give you more informed, be more informed myself and inform you more correctly. And I was amazed to hear that this was his first time he was going to Mayapur. I didn't know. And that he had this longing to be in the birthplace of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And Mother Govardhan Leela was sharing her conversation with Mother Nardi and telling me how he wanted to move to Mayapur, and she was mentioning how, to move to the Holy Dham, you have to have some qualifications. Mahaprabhu has to want you to be there. And on this instance, it seemed that, to me, it was very apparent that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu wanted to take him with him and accept him in this transcendental chanting of the holy names. I know very little about him in terms of personally, but I did know of him from different devotees, of his dedication of traveling and hearing and chanting. He was very well known for his chanting and being very closely connected with Vishnu Jan Swami, who was one of the main pillars of this Harinam Sankirtan in the Radha Damodar days. He was very closely associated with him, just going everywhere and just chanting the holy names, and that is something, it was very dear to him. And to me, I was very sad and very happy at the same time, because it takes a lot of fortune, a lot of sukriti to leave your body in the holy dham. You can try to, you can make plans and, you can do all those things. I want to leave my body in a holy place. It's not something that you can decide, because that is Krishna's house. And he decides who comes in his house and who leaves their body in his house, in his very close company. So I felt that Hasyagrami Prabhu was extremely fortunate that Mahaprabhu picked him from Atlanta and he brought him to Sri Dham Mayapur, and he said, you're going to continue this Harinam Sankirtan in the actual Mayapur in the spiritual world. So I feel very sad and very happy that he's there with Mahaprabhu joined in his beautiful Harinam Sankirtan movement. In terms of my personal interactions with him here in Atlanta over the past 12 years, I've always found him to be this one person, Ajata Shatrava Santa. Someone who's Ajata Shatru. Bhagavad Prabhu was saying he had no enemies. That is the quality of one sadhu. Titikshava Karunika. Surida Sarvadehina. Then Ajata Shatrava Shanta. That means he was very peaceful, and Ajata Shatru meant someone who had no enemies. 12 years of associating with him, I have never found him to say anything bad, anything derogatory about anyone else in 12 years of my life here. And that is something, it takes a lot of effort. And I felt that to him it was very natural, because he was a real devotee of Krishna. He had no animosity towards anyone. He had no ill feeling towards anyone. All he had was just nothing but good things to say. And this was every year, and he would just regularly and religiously come and do his service very peacefully. And if you ever asked him for anything, he was always jump and say, how can I do this service? Taking care of the sound system. It's very menial services. You know, making sure everyone can actually hear the kirtans. He would come and just sit there, patiently just sit there and just provide beautiful services. So those are my memories of Hasyagrami Prabhu. On a personal level, he will be very heavily missed, because I really enjoyed the little association that I would get annually and whenever he would come to the temple. And spiritually, I'm very happy, because there's no place in the world and there's no better circumstances. This is the Mayapur Dham, and within Mayapur Dham, he left his body in Antardvip. Mayapur has 9 islands and represents the 9 processes of devotional service with hearing, chanting. And Antardvip is the inner core of this lotus flower. And this Antardvip is where Mahaprabhu's birthplace is. And in that inner core of this 9 islands of Navadvip, that is where he left his body. So to me, I find it to be extremely transcendental, his departure. So with this, I hope we will sit later on and sing the song of Jayamila Premadhana and in his separation. So thank you all very much for coming to glorify Hasyagrami Prabhu and get to know him some more, for those of you who have not had the privilege of getting to know him closely. Hasyagrami Prabhu ki jai.
Okay. We're very honored to actually have his one and only son. If we can just stand up as his Narottam, please give him your love and support. Hari Bol! And his wonderful stepson, my old friend from birth, Vidur Prabhu. Hari Bol! So, if everyone can just come forward a little bit. Mother Nardi called me from Mayapur, and she was very concerned about Narottam Prabhu. And she asked me, said, Prabhu, can you just check on him? And actually I was still in the bed, so I immediately jumped up and ran over to his house, and she was going to call him. But by the time I had reached there, she had not called him yet. And I'm banging on the door, and Narottam comes to the door, and I give him a big hug with tears in my eyes, and he's thinking, what's wrong? Because he didn't know. I said, because I thought he had heard already. And then when I said, Prabhu, you need to sit down, and immediately he said, it's about my dad. I was like, wow. And he was so composed, and I've known this young man since his birth. I've had to chastise him a few times, but he's a wonderful young man. And I was so proud of him, that he was so composed. And I told him when I left, I said, Narottam, you've given me strength. I came to give you strength, and you've given me strength. And he was saying that my dad, he was talking about never coming back, staying in Mayapur, dying in Mayapur. So Narottam told me that, I was a little bit prepared. So I said, thank you so much for giving me the strength. So thank you, Narottam. So his dear friend and musical partner for many, 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 many years is Dasa Prabhu. He's standing here, so we request him please come and share about Hasyagrami. Dasarat Sutta Prabhu.
Dasarat Sutta Das.
Dasarat Sutta Das. Shall I do Anudas?
Das Anudas Das. Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Must be Lord Chaitanya's prank to get us to glorify devotees who like to remain in the background. Do services that sometimes people never notice. Such as you mentioned Panihati. The electricity every year was supplied for all the booths on the stage by Hasyagrami, crawling under the house running wires. So I've known Hasyagrami for 40 years.
Wow.
But it wasn't until we convened in Atlanta in 1987 that I had 25 years of hanging out with him for hundreds of hours. I've heard and seen many things and heard many tales of his adventures with Vishnu John Swami. And I'll skim a couple of those stories, but first, the most recent news is his trip to India has everyone buzzing. So he wrote this to me, this is an email, last December. He was wanting me to come up and spend time with him before he left for India, which I wasn't able to do. So he said, this is December, he said, the demon will be leaving for Sri Dham Mayapur on January 10th. And some semblance of him may return February 10th. Notice he says may return.
Yes.
Many devotees have said he was talking about not coming back.
Yes.
Or dying there. I've heard him myself say, what does anything matter? I'm going to die soon anyway. So now he writes me the day before he left his body.
Wow.
This is January 15th. Sorry, I'm a little shaky. January 15th. Das! Hare Krishna from Hare Krishna land. I'll try to duplicate his enthusiasm. Says, it's my third day here, and my first impression was, wow! I just want to live here. Atlanta and the USA could go to hell. It's just like him. This is the biggest accumulation of bhakti pran outside of Prabhupada's personal presence I've ever experienced. Been going to morning program and 2 classes a day by 40-year guys every day, and it's so, lots of O's, so inspiring. Now here's another prophetic sentence. This sentence gets me. The continuity makes it seem that Krishna has prepared an agenda just for me. If he only knew what would happen the next day. Yeah, Krishna did have an agenda. The visual impact of the 3 main altars is completely stunning. The size, accessibility, and puja standard are beyond compare of anything in the USA. Puri and Vraj are next for my travels. And then he goes on to enthusiastically describe his visit to the Temple of Vedic Planetarium, how he walked for over an hour, never visited the same spot. And then finally at the end he says, your humble reporter will file observations on the next 2 stops as they occur. Has. So that was his enthusiasm. He was in Mayapur, first visit to India. He's there for 3 days, and Lord Chaitanya says, come on. So now we're happy because he's probably reunited with his dear Vishnu John Swami.
Yes.
He actually, let's go back to 1976, March of 1976, Radha Damodar party, a portion of them. Shankar, did you go to India, March 76?
I did. I was here.
Okay. So Hasyagrami stayed behind because he was just the bus mechanic. And bus drivers don't get to go to India, only book distributors. So Hasyagrami is in America, and Vishnu John Swami, meanwhile, disappears mysteriously in India, and then they track down that he probably committed spiritual suicide. At that time, Hasyagrami had a dream. I've heard many dreams, but back then he saw Vishnu John Swami, who told him personally, because they were buds like this. Vishnu John told him in a dream, don't worry about me, I'm still serving Radha Damodar. So he thought, what does that mean? Then a couple weeks later, he found out that the Lord came back from India and said, Vishnu John's gone. He said he committed suicide. So Hasyagrami was wont to spiritual dreams like that. And a couple of little tidbits. Oh yeah, ever since Vishnu John left this world, Hasyagrami was crushed, and he remained crushed the whole time. We would sit up late at night ranting and raving about the adventures on the bus, and what do you call it, the rogue renegade band of merry pranksters. There's a little group of brahmacharis with their charismatic kirtan, sankirtan, sannyasi leader. So, and late at night, he would just get a sad look and just shake his head and say, "That's my Vishnu John." Because he said, "Srila Prabhupada is my Gurudev." He told me this dozens of times. "Prabhupada is my Gurudev, and I get all of heart's inspiration and wisdom from him. But I couldn't be with Prabhupada personally, but I could be with Vishnu John, and he was transmitting Prabhupada to me." So he remained just so devoted to Vishnu John. He has Vishnu John Swami's Esraj.
Wow.
This Esraj he plays. And Vishnu John Swami's harmonium. And last time I visited him, I filmed Hasyagrami. It was my idea. I said, "Why don't we make a film? You show these two things, these two artifacts, and tell stories." So I have a half-hour video that I'll put together, release a DVD, and post it online. Along with, there's a whole other set of every song on the CD, Naradi Unconditional. I have Hasyagrami showing how to play it on guitar, song by song. So others can maybe learn these. So that was his relationship with Vishnu John. He just remained crushed. Now, Hasyagrami was known for being a little quirky and eccentric, like some of us. So he would say the darndest things. His IQ was so high, just off the map, probably can't even be measured. So he would put together these words and phrases that were so inscrutable, and I'll just give you one example. We were talking about Krishna late one night, and he says, it's like a conclusion of our discussion. Now, I don't know what this means, but this is Hasyagrami's exact words. He said, can't hardly say it with a straight face. He said, "Krishna is spontaneously ridiculous, yet perfectly synchronized." Don't ask me for an explanation. Those kind of things would pop out of his mouth. And his observations of life and people and philosophy and his take on Krishna consciousness and his appreciation for devotees was just matchless. And well, that's a few little tidbits. We have more speakers here? Yeah. Okay, thank you so much. Hasyagrami Prabhu ki jai.
Peter Prabhu, would you like to come and say a few words? One of the dear God brothers, Peter Dham.
Those camera, the small camera.
Hare Krishna. I knew Hasyagrami from the very time I joined the temple in December 1974. He was with Vishnu John Swami, and he played the Esraj, as we already said. And he always was very quiet, but always friendly and kind. And I knew him there, and then when I came here to Atlanta in 2001, he was here, so I was very surprised. I hadn't seen him for a very long time. And he would just come and, we would remember Radha Damodar together, and most of the time what we did then. And the New Year's Day, we had a get-together of the devotees over at Govardhan Prabhu's house, and he was there. We had kirtan together, and I was noticing how well he played his guitar. Any tune that the devotees would sing, he was able to imitate the tune with his guitar. And it didn't really sound like a guitar. It sounded more like a different type of instrument. He had a way of playing it which was very ethereal, the way he would play. And when he was with the Radha Damodar party, he was like part of the sound of the kirtan. A big part of it was Vishnu John, but the background was Hasyagrami with his Esraj. So So Hasyagrami's, really his forte was to be quiet and in the background, but always there was an essence, like incense, of his input into things. When I joined because of that sound of that music and because of Vishnu Swami. So he helped me decide to come, to join this guy, which is the best thing I ever did in my life. If I hadn't have joined ISKCON, I would have been dead by now, for sure. I would be being tortured by the Yamadutas, for sure. So he was a great soul. We didn't have a lot of association outside of the temple. But when we would see each other, it was always, very friendly and kind. Hare Krishna.
Is Chardesha Prabhu here?
Yeah.
Prabhu, can you please come? Say a few words about us, sir.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. I'm really not prepared to really say anything. I'm in shock. I really am. The loss it's so great. When I became a devotee, I had an opportunity to meet Vishnu Swami, and he touched my heart. He was such a wonderful devotee. And when I met him, Hasyagrami was present. And I always saw them connected. When I saw Hasyagrami, that's what I saw. I saw Vishnu John, because it was something that was in him that was Vishnu John. And when Vishnu John left, when I got word that he had left, it was just devastating. And that's what I'm feeling now. It's just no words. Hasyagrami was so special. He had a spirit that was so sweet and so wonderful. He just touched your heart. He touched my heart. And there's some things that we were in the process of doing that were not completed. And I'm lamenting that I didn't do more to try to resolve some things that we were trying to do. But he's a Krishna, and that's what we have to take pride in. I'm really going to miss him. The festivals are just not going to be the same. Hare Krishna.
And we have a wonderful devotee visiting here from Chicago. And I know you had a lot of appreciation for Hasyagrami Prabhu, being a guitar player himself. Sankar Pandita, would you like to come and say a few words?
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Krishna Krishna. Hare Hare. Hare Rama. Hare Rama. Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Shri Shri Radha Madan Mohan ki jai. Shri Jagannath Dev Baladev Subhadra Devi ki jai. Shri Shri Nithai Gaurasundar ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Damodar ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His Grace Hasyagrami Prabhu ki jai. As I was walking here just now, just to offer some words in appreciation of Hasyagrami Prabhu, I glanced at his photograph, and you can see just by his demeanor, very kind soul. You can see in his eyes just a very warm, loving person. The very first time, just a little bit. We have more guests coming in. Can everyone please move forward? Thank you. Sorry. The very first time that I met Hasyagrami Prabhu was maybe in 1973. At that time, I was still a newcomer to our Krishna consciousness movement. And in Washington, D.C., Vishnu Jan Maharaj, who was one of the leading sannyasis, preachers, kirtan leaders are moved at the time, came there with his devotees from the Radha Damodar bus party. So one of the local devotees in Washington, D.C. owned an art gallery. And this person arranged for Vishnu Jan Maharaj and his party to perform kirtan, congregational chanting, in the courtyard of that art gallery. So when I had reached that particular facility with some of the other devotees, the chanting, the kirtan was already going on. And it was the most attractive spiritual kirtan that I ever heard. Because at that point, my association with the Washington, D.C. temple, the kirtans were quite typical with the kartals, the hand cymbals, the drums, and the harmonium, the little keyboard instrument. But here was an esaraj, Indian instrument, plugged through a guitar amplifier. Vishnu Jan Maharaj's harmonium was plugged through a guitar amplifier. And there were a couple of other instruments that were also plugged into guitar amplifiers. And because I play a little guitar, I found this quite exotic, quite unique. And Vishnu Jan Maharaj was leading the kirtan, chanting wonderfully while playing the harmonium, and Hasyagrami was sitting near him playing the esaraj. And I didn't know Hasyagrami at the time, but every now and then he would adjust the amplification, so I could understand he was like the sound man. And the sound was heavenly. I never heard anything like it. And as I was sitting there chanting and being mesmerized by Vishnu Jan Maharaj's chanting, I actually started tearing up. And I started, in a very self-conscious way, wiping the tears from my eyes. Because I thought, one, I'm a new devotee, and I didn't want my emotions to be misunderstood or even seen. So I was self-consciously wiping the tears away, and there are tears of happiness. But as I looked around, the maybe 20 or 30 persons assembled, and these were mostly non-devotees, they were crying. And I found that very, very surprising. This was the hypnotic, mesmerizing effect of Vishnu Jan Maharaj. In fact, Srila Prabhupada said that his voice would attract thousands to the Krishna consciousness movement. And it certainly did. But that was my very first impression of seeing Hasyagrami. We didn't have any exchange at the time, but I just saw how he played a very important part in this very organized way of chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So it wasn't until years later that I would every now and then meet Hasyagrami here and there, but still our exchange wasn't that tangible. It wasn't until I started making, as most of you know, winter visits to Atlanta ISKCON, that's when I started associating a little more with Hasyagrami Prabhu whenever he was visiting Atlanta ISKCON. And he told me many times that his experience during the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan days were the best days of his life. And he could just go on and on and on just talking about that. And he was certainly a devotee that was very, very attracted to music, kirtan, and as we've heard from some of the other speakers, he was very attracted to Vishnu Jan Maharaj. In fact, he has a collection, Hasyagrami Prabhu has a collection of Vishnu Jan Maharaj's different kirtan tapes and even lectures. And he would cherish those. He would just protect them like gold. So I recently came to Atlanta ISKCON just a few days ago. I've been staying with Pita Prabhu, and when we received word that Hasyagrami Prabhu had left in Mayapur, all I could think was, it was certainly the Supreme Lord's arrangement. Sri Dham Mayapur is a place of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Sri Krishna himself. Namo Mahabhadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Goratrise Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is none other than Sri Krishna himself, who appeared in this world and has kindly distributed love of Krishna for anyone and everyone. That is a speciality of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy, that he's not making any kind of discrimination or distinction. Who's fit for Krishna consciousness, who's unfit. The Lord's mercy is such that he's freely giving this Krishna prema, love of Krishna, to anyone and everyone. Therefore, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was considered the most charitable person. No one can compare with the charitable contributions given by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Sri Dham Mayapur, the eternal abode or residential place of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, is saturated with kirtan, with this chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So the fact that Hasyagrami Prabhu was able to give up his body in such a spiritually surcharged place as Mayapur, which reigns supreme for kirtan, sankirtan, congregationally chanting the holy names of the Lord, it is not a wonder. It is the direct arrangement of the Lord himself. So we shouldn't be astonished at the fact that someone is leaving their body. According to the Vedic version, this world, this universe is called Mrityu Loka. The word Mrityu means death. It is the abode or residence of death. So every living entity, from the very powerful devatas, celestial beings, down to the insignificant ant, must undergo these things such as birth and death. So this in and of itself isn't astonishing. This is one of the very elemental features of our Krishna consciousness philosophy. Dehino asmen yatha dehe ko madam yovanam jara tata dehantara praptir dhiras tatra namuyate. Sri Krishna points out in the Bhagavad Gita that there's a deha and there's a dehi. The deha means this body, be it male, female, of a particular ethnicity, or bird, beast, aquatic, insect. This is the body. And then there's a dehi, the possessor of the body, which refers to the indwelling spiritual soul. So it is an unavoidable fact of life that every living entity will undergo birth and death. So that should not be astonishing. But for the devotee of the Lord, there's no cause of bewilderment. So the fact that Hasyagrami Prabhu made his first time visit to Mayapur, and that was the first place he went out of other places that he wanted to visit, such as Braj or Vrindavan, or Jagannath Puri, the place of Lord Jagannath. He mentioned in his email to Dasara Sutta Prabhu, he wanted to visit those places. But he, by the Lord's arrangement, first went to Mayapur. And of course, again, Mayapur is a place of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord in his most merciful feature. So the Lord arranged for Hasyagrami Prabhu to go there and leave his body. And it is understood from the Vedic scriptures, as well as Srila Prabhupada himself, that if anyone passes on in the holy places associated with the Lord's pastimes, such as Vrindavan or Mayapur, liberation, going back home back to Godhead, is guaranteed. So there's an old saying, even the Christians will say this, God works in mysterious ways. And it is a fact. It is a fact. The Lord is very mysterious, but more importantly, He is extremely merciful. He is Bhakta Vatsala. He is very kindly disposed, the friend to His devotees. So His Grace Hasyagrami Prabhu will certainly be missed, particularly by all of you, because he has been associated with this Atlanta ISKCON community for many years. And as we've heard from the previous speakers, behind the scenes he was doing so much. So this is also very important. And I just want to make one last point. Everyone who is coming to the shelter of this International Society for Krishna Consciousness should always be respected, because we don't know how someone individually may be serving this great mission given by Srila Prabhupada. There are those devotees who are in the forefront, doing management, doing so much direct service. And then there are others who are behind the scenes, doing, in many cases, the same equal amount of quality service. So everyone should always be respected. Vaishnaveda kriya mudra vidyetuna bhuchoy. We cannot always understand how another devotee, Vaishnava, is serving their spiritual master in Krishna. So therefore, we should always have a family mood, a compassionate mood, a supporting mood for everyone, regardless of who they are, because we never know how they are pleasing the Supreme Lord. So all of us are very astonished at the sudden departure of Hasyagrami Prabhu, but under the circumstances and how he left this world, in the holy place of Sri Dham Mayapur, surrounded by devotees, the personal land, abode, residence of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, liberation. So the Lord personally called him to that place so he could have all auspiciousness in his passing. So I think I went over the time, but Hasyagrami Prabhu ki jai.
So unfortunately, we won't have time for everybody to speak, but I do want to take a moment. He didn't notice? No. I do want to take a moment to recognize some of his bandmates who I know were impacted by Hasyagrami's association. First, one of our bass players, Bhakti John, could you please stand up? Vivo! He played with us many years. And our new bass player, yeah, best years. Our new bass player, right here in Atlanta, Mother Shanti Keshari. I wish there was time for her to speak. She has a very wonderful love and appreciation for Hasyagrami. One of our drummers, Giri Yadav Prabhu, please stand up. And of course, that missing voice in our Morari band harmonies, Mother Leela Kamala, please stand up. Leela Casey, I'm so sorry, I keep saying Kamala, Leela Casey. Her voice is very sweet, always enjoy singing with you. And I think we've had some association with Zach, who really knew Hasyagrami quite well. And on the percussion side, Balabhadra #2. So thank all of you so much for sharing. Yeah, of course. The unique thing about me and Hasyagrami, we would always fight. Because we were just bullheaded musicians. But here's another unique thing. From 1981 to just a few days ago, we were still a band. There's very few bands in the world that can tolerate each other that much. But because Prabhupada was the center, we were able to do it. Srila Prabhupada Ji. Hasyagrami Prabhu Ji. So thank you all very much, and now we'll continue with the program.